DeadEndRoad Show, episode 87. This is going to be a solo show because fuck if I know what the schedule is at this point. It's been shuffled around and screwed up in all kinds of ways, but yeah, so it's just going to be me here. I did want to say at the top of the show that we are pushing the horror book club discussion of The Pallbearers Club by Paul Tremblay to next time because Ian is, let's just say, preoccupied. I don't know. He couldn't be here for this recording. So yeah, we will do that next time. So if you are following along with us, which would be pretty cool, you can catch that on the next edition of the show. So but yeah, I got some stuff I want to talk about, and also because I need to get an episode out. So because there's going to be lots of coming and going for me, and that's a clip that won't ever be taken out of context. But yeah, I'm going to be going out of state and back into state and then out of state a whole bunch in the upcoming weeks. So I need to get some episodes out and have some episodes also stockpiled. So yes, that's what's happening. Let's do a little Mountains of Madness.
Mountains of Madness.
Cool. So last weekend, I watched the new Ari Aster movie, Beau is Afraid. And if the name Ari Aster doesn't ring any bells, maybe Midsummer or Hereditary will do it for you. And this is a weird one because it was sort of billed as a like comedy drama. And I feel like that sort of does it or maybe did do it a disservice in its marketing, because I didn't know this until after I had already seen it. And I went to its Wikipedia page because I needed some context for a lot of things. But it apparently fucking flopped at the box office, which is surprising because he's sort of made a name for himself with his first two, major films. And this was like an A24 movie, and A24 has just gotten to the point where people will just go see a movie because they know that A24 is releasing it. It's sort of like they've sort of become like the HBO of, like movies in a way, where it's almost like a stamp of some kind of quality, or at least some sort of, approval in a way. And but yeah, it was billed as a comedy drama, and I feel like that sort of framing of it sort of does it a disservice, because at its core it is still a deeply, deeply scary movie. Depending on the kind of person you are, it might be his scariest movie. If you are, like me, like a fellow neurotic, anxious, paranoid person with family issues, then this is gonna make you shit yourself, right? This is the kind of movie that is it's like a 3-hour long panic attack, and you kind of hear that phrase used for movies that are sort of people said that a lot about Dunkirk, where it was just that straight tension, the entire runtime. But this was more just no, this is actually a panic attack. This is you have anxiety the entire time. And that's sort of deep rooted anxiety of oh yeah, no, my entire life was a failure and I was set up to fail, and this is the way things are going to go, and this is just the way things were meant to be. And there really wasn't anything I could do about it because I knew this was going to happen. And so even though I knew it was going to happen and I tried to avoid that outcome, this was just the way that things were going to end up. And I knew it, and I was right for knowing that. And so I shouldn't have done anything to stop it. That kind of anxiety. And that's what it's tapping into. And so maybe that's his core demographic of, but and at the same time, I don't necessarily think I can recommend it because it's weird. It's weird and it's messy and it's way too long. It did not need to be 3 hours. There's a section in the middle that does end up being very, very funny. And it also is a funny movie. I don't want to strike the comedy aspect from the record. It's funny. It's basically a 3-hour long extended sequence of the dinner table scene from Hereditary. He just basically made that whole thing an entire movie. but I don't know if I could recommend it. But no, there is a sequence, like some part in the middle where like I like reach for my phone, and that's always the test, and that's a bad sign if you reach for your phone in the middle of a movie, because it just kind of kept going on and on and on at this one specific thing. It was like, I get it, we can move on now. I get it, but it just kind of kept doing the thing. And yeah, like for a specific set of people, my people, the neurotics, the anxious, the mentally ill is what I'm trying to say. This will be deeply unsettling, deeply terrifying. If you have mommy issues, do not see this movie. This will only exacerbate them. Do not see this movie. Maybe if you have daddy issues too, who knows? You know, like any kind of, if you have a weird family dynamic, do not see this movie. It'll just make that worse. It's got weird psychosexual energy, you know? It's just, yeah. It did not need to be that long. And I know I say that about most movies, but this did not need to be 3 hours. There were some of these like vignettes that you could probably lose. Like going into it, you're kind of expecting, like based on the poster and everything, that it's sort of kind of be like a sort of like, oh brother, where art thou, sort of like Odyssey kind of thing. And that's not what it that's not what it is at all. It's sort of like an Odyssey, you know, like this journey, but it you kind of wind up right where you start, and that's I guess the point. But and you sort of expect the Joaquin Phoenix character Beau, is his name, if you can believe it, to sort of be like this oddball, you know, this sort of like eccentric. And it's sort of a reverse, because he ends up being like the straight man and everything, as like all this chaos is unfolding around him. And Joaquin Phoenix is great. Like, you know, he's great and everything, but like he really sells it as like the straight man. He's kind of doing like a little bit of what he does in The Master, where he's just sort of like, you know, just this guy that's just being fucking pulled along in all of this, like equal parts pathetic and like, you know, I don't know, just anxiety riddled and paranoid. But like the movie doesn't, like the movie's like, oh no, he should be paranoid. He has every right to be paranoid. Like there's nothing wrong with him being paranoid. Like this is how he should be. This is how he should be operating in order to survive. Like he's right. And now you should be right too because of it. like all of your fears and anxieties are now rationalized. You see? So that's the kind of movie that is. So yeah, I don't know if I can't recommend it. It's very different from his other stuff in that way, even though I compared it to like the dinner scene in Hereditary, which is like the most famous scene in that movie. But it's very different. And it does have like, it is like, you can frame it as like a dark comedy, but it's still a deep horror movie. And I feel like if they still would have framed it as like, no, this is just the new Ari Aster horror film, I feel like it would have done a lot better. But just the way that it was kind of marketed, I think kind of like didn't do it justice. At the same time, like even that framing still doesn't change what the movie is. So I still wouldn't like, you know, necessarily like, it wouldn't change my opinion after having seen it. But just hearing that it like flopped like that is strange, especially because it seems to have reviewed well. But yeah, just a very, very weird one. I'm fine with him doing whatever the fuck he wants to do. If he wants to keep making weird ass movies, that's perfectly fine with me. Perfectly fine. But yeah. What else is going on with me? Turning the house into the Big Brother house. Feel like I should be talking about this with Ian, but he already knows all about this. Adding doorbell camera, rear camera to the house. It's weird having it go through the server. Upgraded the server. I don't have a computer science degree, but I feel like I'm cosplaying. I feel like I'm cosplaying as somebody that has a computer science degree, where I like need to type in like, I basically need to kind of code like these files in order to get the server to work, or like, you know, to get these cameras to work with the server. And I am struggling with it, mostly because there's like the cameras themselves work, which is good, but I'm trying to get them to work with these little AI modules so they're not recording 24/7. And so if it sees a person, it'll just record the portion of like a person showing up in the camera, or like, oh, there's a deer. And so then it'll record the portion with the deer, because I don't want a recording 24/7 to my server, because then I'll have no storage space, and then I'll just have to go in probably daily and just delete all this footage. And that is a fucking full-time job that I don't want. And so I bought this AI module. It's just a USB stick that's supposed to take off the processing power off of the CPU in order to go through these predetermined like data sets, basically. And that's the other thing, because I don't want anything touching anybody else's cloud or any other computers. That shit is not leaving the house. No footage of our house, or you want to talk about paranoia, like no footage is leaving the house. No footage is leaving, it's not touching anybody else's cloud servers, and it's not touching any fucking law enforcement, right? Like no Ring doorbell that talks directly to the cops and the FBI is touching this house. No way. It's bad enough I had to, when I went to Pittsburgh, visited my grandma, I was on the Ring doorbell every time I left the house. Hate that shit. Awful. Because they don't tell you that when you buy it. It's like, oh yeah, no. The cops and the feds have a direct line in to your camera. And it's the same thing. Everybody says, oh, well, if you're a law-abiding citizen, you have nothing to hide. It's like, that's not the point. That's not the point. I didn't sign up to be in a police state. I didn't sign up to be on 24/7 surveillance by the fucking cops that will use any excuse to do anything. It's the same. They have body cameras. Yeah, they can fuck them, turn them off. They could turn off their body cameras. If they have a line into your Ring doorbell, they're not turning that shit off. They're turning that shit on. There's the difference. Sticking their hand over their body camera. Bullshit. So anyway, sorry. The anarchist came out. So none of the footage leaves the house, and it's all processed on site. Nothing touches anybody else's service. But that's the tricky part, is like, it's like, oh yeah, you could sign up for this cloud fucking thing. You could sign up for this cloud, whatever the fuck. It's like, no. I don't know you. I don't know where your servers are. I'm not trusting you with footage of my face. No way. I'm not going to start wearing a mask to enter my own damn house. So that's part of what I'm working on. In my spare time. If it was up to me, I wouldn't even have them, but I was asked to install them. So if they're going to be installed, they're going to be installed on my terms, and those are my terms. My insane brain poisoning terms, but that's what they are. Speaking of brain poisoning, since Ian's not here, that means we could do an extended Moogle. How about that? Recently, my mom called a Moogle that fuzzy thing your sister likes. I just thought that was worth mentioning. So, this is a callback to, I don't know how many episodes ago. Somebody will have to tell me. But I mentioned that I watched the anime, The Call of the Night. And it was the vampire comedy romance show that's on High Dive. And I talked about why I liked it. And also some iffy shit. But I liked it so much that I picked up the manga and started reading that. And I realized why, belatedly, some more reasons why I liked it so much. One thing is that it's written by the manga writer and illustrator Kotoyama, who wrote Dagashi Kashi, which was it's a manga series, but I watched the anime, and that's a fun little comedy series about a boy that is like trying to avoid inheriting his dad's like little corner store candy shop, like penny candies, basically. And that's what Dagashi means. It's sort of like little snacks and penny candies. And that series is about like this odd girl that comes to town and like wants him to take over like her massive Dagashi empire. And so he's like in the middle of like not wanting to take over his dad's shop, but then also this weird girl comes to town, and then you learn about the history of like these weird little like penny candies, like usually like a couple per episode or something like that. And it's fun. Weird shit happens. It's a little comedy, I should have known immediately just based off of the art style. Sort of like all the characters, they're not cross-eyed, but like their pupils and irises are drawn like towards the center of their eyes, like looking more inwards. So kind of like they're cross-eyed, but they're not. I don't know how to describe that, but they're more towards the center of their face rather than like the center of their eye, if that makes sense. And also they have like very long fingers. I'm just noticing now too. So he has like a very distinct art style, and I should have noticed it, but I didn't. And so then the other thing that I found belatedly is that the studio that produced the anime for The Call of the Night, Linden Films, is directed by Tomoyuki Itamura. And this is an animator that was previously part of the Monogatari series with Shaft and took over the Monogatari series after Nisei Monogatari and co-directed sort of all of the Monogatari with Akiyuki Shinbo, who was sort of like the main director of the Monogatari project with Shaft until Itamura left Shaft. So, and that I kind of should have realized as well. Basically, like the style of The Call of the Night, like I talked about how beautiful like these nightscape backgrounds and like the way that the city is sort of depicted, like the architecture and the buildings. Like a lot of that is now present in the manga that I'm reading, but like the way the colors pop and like the contrast between the night itself and the stark difference of the buildings in the anime is very Shaft inspired, and I should have picked up on that. But yeah, so it's very cool to see like sort of the through lines and like the things that I like quite a bit, and yeah, I just thought that was interesting to discover that after the fact, where you just have that like immediate recognition of like, oh, I like this, right? And you know, I liked it for the story and the comedy and whatever else, but then whenever you have a closer inspection of like how it was made or who was making it, and you draw these connections like, oh, of course, this is why. These are like creators that, you know, have made other things that I am very passionate about, and have like, you just see this through line through things that you like without even picking up on it, sort of unconsciously. But yeah, so I'm reading through that now. I'm reading very slowly, mostly because I'm reading from the beginning, which was covered in the anime. And so it's material that I've seen, but I'm just like reading through it anyway, just to see if there's like some differences. You know, I could skip to the stuff that I haven't, like the story I haven't experienced yet. But like, you know, I want to see if there's any differences, and I'm not really in any rush. So, and speaking of anime, a couple weeks ago, your boy did not have his meds for a few days. And so that means I couldn't sleep. And so since I couldn't sleep, I was watching anime. And so in like this period of 3 days where I just could not sleep whatsoever, I watched a couple series. I watched Oshi no Ko, and I then watched fittingly Insomniacs After School. These are very different shows, very different. Oshi no Ko is about sort of like Japanese idol culture and the entertainment industry. It's sort of like the big show that just finished airing this past season, and it's quite good. It's very interesting how, well, one, it's sort of it's not really an isekai, but it's sort of like a reincarnation story, but kind of an isekai. It's like so weird how that happened, like how that sort of element of the plot is factored in. It's like at a certain point, it just kind of becomes an afterthought, but it's like used as the very basic setup, all for kind of like a joke. So there's a doctor like in the countryside who is a big fan of this idol, and through happenstance he meets that idol and becomes her doctor, and he then gets reincarnated as her child, and it seems to be just because of a joke in Japanese culture where if an idol like, you know, has a baby or like announces that they're pregnant, the fans will say, oh, I wish I could be reincarnated as the kid. Which is very strange to me. That's very strange why you would want to be the kid of like a celebrity that you like. It's just really a weird thing to, like, even in joking like that you would want. Like, I don't know, like somebody says that they're pregnant and you're like, God, I wish that were me. Like, that's just weird. It's so weird to me. It makes my skin crawl, honestly. But like that's the opening premise, and it's for that joke. And so the series is 11 episodes, but it's kind of really not, because the first episode is an hour and a half. The first episode is basically a movie, and you could honestly, like, that could just be standalone, and you could not watch the rest of the series, and you could just watch that and be like, wow, holy shit, bam, it's like a completed thing, right? And of course the story continues. But it is sort of like this contained beginning, and it really goes some places. Let me tell you, I don't want to spoil it, but I don't think I've seen a show that sort of like opens with a movie the way this does. Like it wasn't split up, at least the version that I had. It was not split up into like 3 episodes. It was like, nope, this is episode 1. It's definitely an hour and a half. I was like, okay, all right, you know. And of course, I couldn't sleep, so I'm like, yeah, fuck it, let's go. I was not prepared. I was not prepared for the ending of that episode at all. No, I was definitely not. But yeah, no, this is about like the darker side of the entertainment industry. If I had one sort of like negative thing to say about the show, it sometimes gets a little lectury, where it will like be explaining a thing to a character about like, no, this is just the way it works in the entertainment industry. And it'll just sort of like kind of dump a paragraph at you, but like through a character. And it's like, okay, you know, like we get it, but like it does get very lectury. And that it's like the stated goal of the show is to be like, yeah, no, there's some shit that happens here. There's some exploitation and abuse and everything else. And so we're just going to tell you about it openly. And so it's like, yeah, okay, fine. You know, it's definitely the stated point, but it's just sometimes it's done in a very ham-fisted way. And that's really my only major criticism of the show, is that it's a little heavy-handed. But I mean, it gets the point across. Let me tell you, it definitely gets the point across. But yeah, I would recommend it. Like I don't really know much about the Japanese, the idols and all that stuff. I don't listen to J-pop. The closest I now get is like baby metal, and again, I just listen to the music. You know, I don't really know anything about, you know, the personal lives or like the personas, I guess, of the band members or whatever. I think the closest is like the VTubers, who are also like do music and then are also like in the idol outfits, is like a similar thing. And it's like this, since this is such a new show, this touches on that as well. It touches on live streaming. It touches on, you know, and like the crossovers between all of these. It's quite interesting. And like I said, Insomniacs After School couldn't be more different. It's so this is a show about 2 high school kids that have insomnia, and they can only seem to fall asleep in each other's company, and that's sort of it. They end up starting or like restarting their school's astronomy club because they fell asleep in the school's observatory, because their school has an observatory, which I doubt is a very common thing in Japan, but who knows? I can't speak definitively. And yeah, it's just nice. It's just a nice show. You know, it portrays, let me tell you, as somebody that cannot sleep without being heavily medicated, it portrays insomnia very well. It really does. Just like, you're dead fucking tired. You're physically exhausted. You're mentally exhausted too. You're in bed. You close your eyes. It just doesn't fucking happen. It doesn't work. And it portrays that very well and very realistically. Just like when the light creeps in at like 5 or 6 in the morning and you feel like such a fucking failure for not being able to fall asleep. Like you just lost hours just laying there trying to sleep. And it's like, well, shit, I couldn't even get this right. I couldn't even fall asleep. I couldn't even get like an automatic human function right. Well, shit. It does that very well. It does that thing that like I love to see, where it's like, oh yeah, we're gonna just like get together and solve all our psychological problems. It avoids that. It avoids that nicely. So yeah, it's a good, nice show. It's a very good show if you have insomnia. First-hand account. If you can't sleep, check it out. I don't know if it's gonna help you, but like it's not gonna hurt. It's not gonna hurt. Yeah, so I recommend that one. I think these are both on High Dive because I had to go grab them. Yeah, High Dive's gotten some good shit recently. Some exclusive stuff that is. I think their sub is pretty cheap, so it's probably worth just like grabbing that sub and watching their exclusive shit. But yeah, that's what I did for those 3 days. I couldn't sleep. And you know, I couldn't do one of these segments without having more to say about Persona 3. So there was a new trailer that dropped during Anime Expo. Then this is our first time listening to the English voice cast. And there's also one other detail about the sort of the English version of Persona 3 Reload. is that they seem to have matched the character portrait lip syncing to English instead of them just kind of like flapping away like bap, 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 like Muppets. It seems that they've actually matched the mouth movements to English, the English speaking, which is really cool to see because that wasn't the case with even Persona 5. So yeah, that's a nice improvement. That's really cool to see. It looks a lot better than just them going bap 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 as they're just like their character portrait is talking and they have the voiceover over it. So yeah, I mean that's nice. It's good to see. If you haven't seen photos of like people at Anime Expo, by the way, holy shit, that is the last place I think I'd ever want to be. There's just too many people, just like packed in, like just like thousands and thousands. Oh my god, like it just looks miserable and hot. I get sweaty now just in my room with air conditioning on. I'm like a blob. I'm just like disgusting. To be around that many other sweaty people with nowhere to move and no air, I could never. I could never do. I honestly could never do it. Like I've been to so many shows where like you're just packed in, and that's like hundreds at the most. Like the pictures of this are just like I don't think it could ever be worth it. Yeah, no, not for me. Never for me. But anyway, yeah. So Atlas dropped the new trailer for Persona 3 Reload, and it is the first time we've heard some of the English voice cast. And they sound good. They sound good on the most part. It's just going to be a weird transition. Like you've played the games a bunch and you're so used to hearing these characters and their original voices for so long that to hear different voices is going to be jarring. At least for me, I think for other people as well. But for me in particular, I think the biggest differences were Akihiko, because Akihiko had such a unique voice to him, and then like Mitsuru, who was like one of my favorite characters, sounded pretty different. Akihiko definitely sounded different, but Mitsuru sounded pretty different. Yukari sounded very similar, and Fuka was different, but again, Fuka had a very distinct way of talking, and so it's gonna be a change. You know, it's gonna be a change. But also, again, like to me, these characters also look very different in like these 3D models, like these very pencil thin, like non-chibi deformed PS2 models, and like these new portraits. They look very different as well. So it's like, yeah, this is a new thing, you know. So I'm excited to see and hear more. So the thing is that every full moon, which ties into the game's theming, we're getting more info, whether that's, I don't know, more gameplay or just more details or what. Leading up to the launch, we're getting more details. So you will hear more from me as I have more to say about Persona 3 Reload. So, and I also delayed the recording of this episode again because I was briefly going to touch on Final Fantasy XIV, but then I remembered that the FanFest keynote was going to be on Friday. And so I was like, well, you know, I'll just hold off and wait and see what happens at the keynote. And so, of course, at the keynote, they, as we knew, they announced the new Final Fantasy XIV expansion, and it's called Dawn Trail, and they're targeting summer 2024. So next summer, we have a whole year, and it's definitely more Final Fantasy XIV. Yeah, it's really kind of all I have this, like, I don't know. It's tough to, it feels like I've completely quit the game because I kind of have at this point. Like, I just have no desire to play it at all. And what they showed, and what they told us is going to be like in the expansion, you know, is just like all the shit that we expect. They're like, yeah, there's going to be 6 new zones and this many raids and this many trials. And it's like, yes, we know, we expect all of that. Like, what's the big new feature? Like, what's the big thing that you're going to be introducing for the expansion? And they didn't have anything like that. Like, and they said there's 2 jobs. They didn't even give us one of them. So we know that one's going to be melee, and we know that one's going to be a caster. And the hint was that Yoshi P, the game's director, and also the producer of Final Fantasy 16, was wearing a Ninja Turtles t-shirt. And so you could speculate and say that it's going to be one of them. One of the weapons that they're holding is one of the jobs. Or, oh, they're all artists, and so there's a job in some Final Fantasy game, Pictomancer, or artist, you know, since they're all named after artists, Leonardo and whatever the hell else, you know. And it's like, okay, maybe. It's like, I don't care. They have 2 more fan fests to like sort of dole out information, but none of it's going to be like game changing, right? You know, like anything that would make me like care are actually like major systems changes to the way that the game and combat works. And those are mostly things that they're not going to say on stage. To be like the biggest deal, and this is what actually got the biggest reaction out of the crowd, out of the entire thing, which I don't know if that says more about the audience or about like the information that they were giving, was the thing that got the biggest cheer and the biggest crowd reaction was when they announced that they're adding the ability to add 2 dies to every piece of gear, or well, gear that can be dyed, rather than just 1. So you can now have 2 die channels instead of just 1. And everybody went crazy. And I went crazy too. I was typing to, you know, some guildmates at the time because we were all watching it. And even I went crazy because currently you can only dye 1 part of the gear, and it's not the overall piece. It's whatever piece of the gear they decide you can dye. It's now, oh, we get 2. And then looking back, it's like, God, really? Like, this is what we were appeased by is that? So I don't know. I don't know if this game is still for me. I really don't. Just the way the combat currently works. Like, I talked about that in that gigantic episode, you know. It's like, they didn't talk about anything to address that, and they wouldn't, right? They don't talk about that kind of thing until like a couple months away from the expansion. So not until 2024 would we possibly get like combat systems changes. And then again, stuff that they said for that pre-Endwalker, they doubled back on and changed shit in Endwalker. So the biggest example of this is, so I talked about like the 2-minute meta thing, right, previously. I know this is bullshit. I know this is in the week. I know. Every time I talk about Final Fantasy XIV, everybody turns off the episode. I know. But they talked about how all cooldowns were going to 2 minutes. And they're making things 60 seconds to line up with the 2 minutes, right? Okay. So pre-Endwalker, they said that Black Mage has an ability called Ley Lines. And they put it down, and whenever the Black Mage stands in it, they cast faster. Okay? Real easy, because Black Mage wants to go fast. Black Mage has slow cast times, and they want to have fast cast times. So they said that, yeah, Ley Lines is 90 seconds, and they're keeping it at 90 seconds, even though it doesn't line up with everybody's buffs, because they still wanted to have a Black Mage to have that flexibility. And so that's why they were keeping it that way. They said that pre-expansion. Then the expansion comes out. What do you know? Ley Lines is at 2 minutes. And so they went back on it. So even if they say that they're making like system changes like in that way to be like philosophy changes to the combat, I can't trust it until it's in the game because of the way that they even went back on things like that in the lead up to Endwalker. And we didn't even know how bad things were going to get until we played Endwalker, and we're like, this is all kind of the same shit. This is all this, like, every job is the fucking same. Like, so to go along with that, so you know what 90-second cooldown they didn't change is Astro's light speed, which actually does a very similar thing. Whenever the Astro uses light speed, their casts are basically instant for a very brief time, and it's on a 90-second cooldown. The problem with it being at 90 seconds is that all of the Astro's other buffs are on 30, 60, and 120. So since light speed is on 90 seconds, you have no flexibility to use it any other time except for 2 minutes. So it might as well be a 2-minute cooldown. It sucks, it's janky, and it's bad. So yeah, and like they released this part of the trailer because they have to save the rest of the trailer bits for the European Fanfest in London and the Japanese Fanfest. And that the London is happening in October and Japanese is happening in January. I think it's January. And so they save the next bits of the trailer for those. And then at Japanese, we get the whole thing. And it's like, okay, yeah, this looks like Final Fantasy, you know, like they're still doing the food porn thing, I guess. It's just very strange. It's like, yeah, I don't know. I don't think this game is for me anymore. I just don't. And I'm just kind of like searching for like, I need another like number go up game, because like Diablo was kind of a bust. Like I finished the campaign and it was just like the end game was actively miserable. actively miserable, and everything they've done since has made it more miserable. And so I'm just like, it looks like I'm done with that too. You know, I guess I got my money's worth because I finished the campaign, but it's like, you know. So I'm playing Honkai, and it's like that patch came out, and I kind of did that patch's content. And so I do my dailies, I do my little tasks like a good boy. It's like, okay, you know, I'm like at a crossroads, you know. It's so stupid. It's so stupid. I could like take up knitting or something, you know. But no, I want to see the number go up. I want the number to get higher. I want the number to get bigger. So. And I thought about bringing back the so like that's the other problem is that I've been having trouble like picking like what next game I want to like sink my time into, because I need to kind of always have like one going, even if it's just in the background. I need to kind of have one going. And so I'm at the very end, the very, very, very end of Final Fantasy 16, because there's sort of like the way that game works is, and this is, there's no spoilers again, no spoilers. If you want to hear our full, like, again, spoiler-free thoughts on Final Fantasy 16, you could check out the last episode where we go into the systems and our thoughts on like the story structure, but no story specifics. I think it was a good talk. You can check out the last episode for that. But I'm at the very end of the game, right? And they do the thing where like, yeah, this is the end of the game. Let's do it. And then I'm like, yeah, okay, let's go. Let's roll. Let's finish this up. They dump, and I counted. I had to count because it was insane. They dump 13 side quests at you, plus I think it was six hunt marks. Right when you're like, yeah, let's wrap up the game. And it's like, dude, I was just gonna be done with you. And I got there about 2 weeks ago, and I haven't touched the game since. Mostly because I don't want to deal with the side quests were like, it was like I was playing Final Fantasy 14 again, you know, like as we talked about last time. So it's like I don't want to do those. But I've made it that far doing every side quest, and that part of my brain that's like completionist is like, well, just fucking do them, just get them over with. It's like I don't want to. So yeah, so I'm looking for my next thing afterwards. I've started and like done the opening to a bunch of different RPGs. I started Chained Echoes, which is sort of like a JRPG and like inspired RPG, like indie game. So I did the opening to that, and it didn't really grab me. I played the opening to Tokyo Mirage Sessions. I dusted off my Switch. I got issues with that game. Mostly exterior. Like the font is really small in Tokyo Mirage Sessions. Like the menu fonts are really small, and there's no way to make them bigger. I think I'm just getting old, but the menu fonts are really, really small. And also the dialogue text is white on a white background. It is very hard to read. It's actively like difficult to read because it's white text with a very thin black border around the text on a white background. And I don't know who the fuck thought that was a good idea. And I cannot find any settings for that either. So that is a major roadblock, like major roadblock to actually playing that game. Because that game, while it was translated, it was not dubbed. And so all of the voice acting is in Japanese. So even if I wanted to just listen to it somehow, I could not, because of course I do not speak Japanese. So that is very, very difficult. And yeah, there's just some other things that I've kind of picked up, but like nothing's grabbing me. So I thought about doing the JRPG wheel, but I don't know. I just don't want to get stuck with something. And that's kind of where I'm at in terms of games right now. It's a struggle. It's a first world problem to the max, but that's where it is. Maybe I'll bring it back for next time if I still can't decide and hunker down on something, because I need to clear out some games. I need to get some games out of here. So I think that's all I had to talk about this time. Just getting everything off my chest, everything important, all the important things off my chest, all the things that matter, you know? Yeah, thank you so much for listening. Really do appreciate it. We're in a bit of it's summer, who gives a shit, you know, kind of mode. But next time, we will be doing our Pallbearers Club discussion. So I hope you do check that out. You can follow us. I don't give a shit. I don't give a shit. Social media is so stupid. Check out the YouTube though. I'm formulating. This is very inside baseball, but I'm formulating a nice template for clips and for segment breakouts, and it's gonna it should look very nice. So if you can't check out full episodes, but maybe you want to listen to certain segments, check out the YouTube for that. Check out the Ko-fi page where I try to post. Like its social media, free to follow, no cost to follow. What else? I feel like there was something else, but I didn't write it down because I'm a moron. I can't remember. I can't remember. So it must not be that important. So yeah, that'll be it. Check out the next one for the book club, and yeah, I'll figure out the schedule when I figure out the schedule. So thank you for bearing with us. Thank you for listening to the show. Really do appreciate it. Tell a friend if you had fun with the show. That would be cool. That'd be fun. But yeah, see you in the next one. Appreciate you. All right, bye.